All right, welcome to the Fans in Blue podcast. It's a smaller group today, just Kushal and I. Um, this is been a pretty quick turnaround between series. I think the important thing is, we're back with more live Test cricket, and again with two of the top four sides playing in the world. Um, India versus England. Kushal, what does this contest mean to you?
A few things. From my earliest cricket memories, 92, 93, when England came to India was, I think, what I remember being at Wankhede, seeing Graham Hick at that 100. So it obviously has a larger meaning for me. But in the grand scheme of things, currently, obviously, the World Test Championship, this is a key series for us. I think England has been touring well. I believe they won in South Africa, they won in Sri Lanka. So they come in with some confidence. Um, and believe it or not, maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, I thought this was going to be a 4-0 series and we just creamed them. But as we're getting closer, I'm getting a little nervous, maybe. For our team. There's a few reasons for that. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think we've come off such a high in Australia. I hope we don't have like a fall back to earth kind of a performance in the first game. All the players have been, just being showered with love everywhere. You're seeing them just give interviews all over the place. They're everywhere basically right now. So they're the toast of the town. I just hope that they're ready and focused and ready to go. The other thing that's adding to my nervousness is the fact that Ravindra Jadeja is not there for the first two games. I think he's the most key player for us to give us balance in the team. And his replacements, I'm not too sure about, but we can get into those discussions when we talk team selection. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think nervousness, not as much as you. I do think that the replacement players, especially the stature of those players, Kohli, Ishant Sharma, who would have thought we'd be, holding Ishant in such high regard 5 years ago.
I always did. I don't know if you remember, but I
Yeah,
did.
I know you did, but many of us didn't. And then, you've got Ashwin and Bumrah coming back for this test. Pandya probably unlikely in the first one or two tests, but he's with the squad. Um, I think the reinforcements will add a lot. I think in India it's almost impossible for us to lose given how good our spinners are. And I share your thought that I was confident on 4-0 kind of a month ago, but now that Jadeja's not there, it just breaks it up a little bit from one end. Otherwise, it's relentless from two ends, and it's almost impossible to play those guys in Indian conditions. All this talk about like an English grass covering on the pitch has been put to bed. Sounds like that's just there to sort of hold the surface together so that
We're
it
not
doesn't
turning
end
from
in
day
2 days.
one.
Yeah, and so it doesn't end in 2 days and probably takes like 4 days. But I expect us to win. I expect the games will be pretty close. And yeah, I think overall, usually we sort of start, sorry, we end with our prediction, but this time let's flip it around and start with our prediction. I'm going to go India wins 3-1.
Oh man, it's hard. Like I said, and like you said, a month ago it was 4-0 for me, India. As we're getting closer, with Jadeja not there, who his replacement is going to be. Pant has become undroppable now, so we're going to miss out on Saha's keeping. Which again with the spinners, the keeping I think is really important, and I'm not confident of his keeping abilities yet to the spinners. And we saw in Australia he dropped a couple of catchable catches, and it's definitely going to do a lot more than it did there. Um, I don't see us losing a test match, to be honest. I think our batting is far too strong for us to lose. It's more, can we get 20 wickets consistently without Jadeja? So I think it's probably between 2-0 and 3-0 for us. I would lean towards 3-0 for us.
Got it. Now, sort of moving on to our first section here, where do you think Kohli's head is as far as the 11 goes? If you had to kind of construct the 11, assuming, I think we all agree the top six pick themselves, but number six could be a batsman only or a batsman keeper. How would you construct the 11?
So, the fact that Jadeja is not there, I think we would need 5 bowlers. The control that he has, he's so experienced in Indian conditions and he's so like almost unplayable in these conditions. And what he adds with the bat, we wouldn't need a 5th bowler with him. Or he could give us that, flexibility of playing an extra batsman or an extra bowler depending on the conditions. But I'm not as confident in, say, a Washington Sundar. I'm definitely not confident in Akshar Patel at all. I don't know what his first class record is, but I've seen a little bit of him in the limited overs game, and I think he's just he is the quintessential bits and pieces player that Manjrekar was talking about. It's like a poor man's Jadeja, And then do we play Kuldeep or do we not play him? So I think his head is going to be around how to set up that bowling lineup that can get him the 20 wickets. Honestly, I think our top 5, forget who's going to come in at 6, but our top 5 is so strong in these conditions. I mean, Rohit Sharma is a Bradman in India. Shubman Gill is just on a high from Australia, and he's born and bred in Indian wickets. So I think he's going to be fine. I think Pujara is going to be, amazing this series. I think you're going to see the exact opposite of, well, not exact opposite, but you're going to see a very solid but big long innings because he's done that against England in the past in India. Kohli's going to come back. He's going to have point to prove, especially with all this talk of Smith, Williamson, Root all getting big hundreds. So he's going to be motivated in more ways than one. And then I think Rahane is going to try, he's going to be on a high as well after Australia. So our top 5 is you can't even compare it with England, right? England's top 5 is Joe Root and Ben Stokes. That's it, in my opinion.
So just coming back to the Indian team, though. So it sounds like we've got Gill and Rohit opening, Pujara, Kohli, Rahane, and Pant. That's your top 6.
I'm like I said, I'm not so sure about Pant. I know he's undroppable, and I think the team management is going to lean towards him because of what he did in Australia. But I don't think we need that. I think we need to shore up the keeping a lot more. Because
sorry, you're saying you would drop Pant after what he did in Australia?
I would, just because of the team. I don't think we can play him just as a batsman, because then that would mean we would play 4 bowlers.
That's a very, very bold call.
That's what I would have done. And I'm a big Pant backer. If you remember in Australia, I was like from ball 1, Pant should have been playing. I think those conditions favor him. In India, I think Saha's batting is going to be even 50% of what Pant can do, but his keeping is much, much better. And I just don't want to see catches being dropped and things like that, missed stumpings. All those things I think would add up and hurt us more. I'm trying to see how we get 20 wickets. And I think having a technically sound keeper is a must for us in 2 spinners, right? I mean, 2 pacers, I think Pant is fine, but I think 2 spinners.
Yeah, I mean, look, I go a slightly different route. I think Washington Sundar showed me enough in Australia that gives me confidence to play him, and his batting's really sound. So I play him at 7. Ashwin's at 8. He picks himself, and his batting's had a bit of a resurgence, especially with that, blockathon along with Vihari. And I think the question then is, you've got Bumrah, Ishant, and Siraj are your 3 top seamers. Do you go with all 3 of them, or do you go with 2 of them and pick Kuldeep? And I think that'll sort of depend on the conditions. If the conditions actually have a bit of grass, they might actually go with three seamers and back to two off spinners to do the job. Excuse me. If they find that the conditions are going to be more favorable to spin, as is usually the case at the Chepauk, they'll probably go with Kuldeep. The other thing Kuldeep does is actually all these guys do. I don't know if Sundar has a effective dusra, but he's definitely got a really good quicker one. But Ashwin's got the carom ball. Kuldeep has got the wrong one. I think they all challenge both edges, and I think that's kind of the thing that people were saying, are you going to miss out with Jadeja? But with him not being there, but I think that these guys have enough variation in their armory to be able to really challenge these English batsmen from the get-go. So that's kind of how I would be thinking about it, and I would almost bias, given Washington Sundar is still new, towards picking the extra spinner.
Yeah, I think totally agree with you. I think Sundar, his inexperience. I mean, he had a great first test, but he's not played a lot of first-class cricket. Obviously, Chepauk is his home ground, so he knows it well. But he's like the sort of flatter spinner who I'm not sure if he's gonna. He kind of reminds me a little bit of remember Jayant Yadav in the previous England series where he was a third spinner. So I'd look at Sundar as a third spinner more than a. And he's so similar to Ashwin, right? He spins the ball the same way. They're both off spinners. And then Kuldeep actually also spins the ball in the same way, but it's obviously a different trajectory coming that he's left-handed. So I just, I feel that we're missing out because of the variation that Jadeja would have.
Yeah, but that's kind of what my point was, right? Like, I think these guys have got variations where they turn the ball the other way as well. So I think they're going to challenge both edges. I mean, Ashwin got 6 for 55 against them at Wankhede last time, and number of balls were carom balls, which just defeated the outside edge.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more like when they're bowling in partnerships, right? So if Ashwin's bowling on one end and Washington's bowling on the other end, the batsmen are seeing a similar, type of a bowler. Whereas if you had Ashwin and Jadeja, they're seeing, different stuff. So they have to keep adjusting to that line and from where the delivery is leaving the hand and pitching and turning. So they have a lot more to think about. I think with these two guys, especially, they can get into a rhythm of, okay, it's more of the same on both ends. That's my only concern.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. I do think, though, I mean, it's not like these guys are the best players to spin.
True. And we don't have a lot of choice. So, it's...
Yeah.
That's
like an English friend of mine recently said that unless Root scores daddy hundreds, then there's going to be no chance of England winning any test match.
Well, I mean, even if he does score daddy hundreds, I don't think that is going to be enough. They're going to need, if you remember 2012-13, the first test match, Alistair Cook made like 190. We beat them almost by an innings. We won by like 9 wickets or something.
Yeah.
Then the second test, he made 140, 50. But then they got that push from Peterson's innings, which, really set them rolling. So they would need somebody else. I mean, even if Root scores double hundreds, we have so much batting that they're not going to be able to outscore us. They're not going to be able to get us out for less than 300 in the first innings, I believe, in any test match, bar maybe the, pink ball test.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess, so on that point, could segue to our next section, which is how do they exploit England's frailties? So, where do England have major weaknesses, and how are our bowlers and batsmen going to be, best positioned to exploit those weaknesses?
I mean, I think England have a lot of holes in their team in terms of, I don't think their openers are settled. If you look at Sri Lanka, I don't think that their openers really did much. Joe Root obviously is their strength. I think Ben Stokes will be able to hold his own. I believe they'll play Moeen Ali at 3 now that Zach Crawley is injured. He's most likely out of the series because he fractured his wrist. So if Moeen Ali
But
plays at
apparently he
3,
slipped on a marble floor wearing spikes.
yeah, I don't know what to say about that. But I believe Moeen Ali had a successful tour when they were there last time around. He had 200, so he might have some confidence. And he's kind of a hit and miss guy, right? When he's on, he's quite good, and when he's off, his confidence is so low, he could be absolutely terrible. So I think the openers are definitely a weakness, and their spin bowling attack is a weakness. I think their spin bowling attack, you look at them and you see, okay, they're honest triers. Um, they'll try to control the run rate, but they're not going to be very effective wicket takers. They're going to have to bowl a lot of balls to get wickets. So their fast bowlers will have to come into play a lot more to get those, incisions. And so I think that their bowling, has some holes. Their batting up top has holes, which we can take advantage of and put pressure while we're batting or bowling, depending on what's happening at the time. But um, we have some areas that we can really hurt them, which could really throw them off their game, really quickly.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is if you look at the way they played the Sri Lankan spinners, there was a lot of tentativeness in the way they played. And, Dom Sibley scored that 50 when they were chasing, which kind of people were lauding and said that, look,
I don't.
mind
Those
over
kind of
matter.
50s don't mean anything, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
but
you look at
it does,
Joe
right? It
Burns
does
did the
mean a
same
lot, though.
thing in
I think
Australia, right?
look, it means a lot because he was able to put his sort of insecurities against playing spin away. Now that being said, I think they're going to be tested more by Ashwin and Kuldeep, potentially even Washington Sundar. And I think that's kind of where they may just lose the game mentally, because if they get good starts, Root and Stokes are good enough to get them to good scores. And also Jimmy Anderson, don't forget, is the most successful fast bowler of all time. So I wouldn't put it past him, especially after his performance in Sri Lanka, to come up with another stellar performance against us. He's good at swinging the old ball. Don't think there'll be as much reverse swing this time, just because not able to work on the ball, given your kind of the restrictions you have with COVID. But um, I wouldn't put it past him. I guess I'm not really arguing for them doing well. I guess I'm sort of playing the devil's advocate as to where they might be able to hurt us.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I mean, of course, if they get a good start, which I think is their weakness, if it becomes a strength, then it's going to have that ripple effect, and the confidence that the batsman coming in would feel, and the way they would play would be different. But I wouldn't read too much into their performance in Sri Lanka. For me, the Sri Lankan team that was playing against them firstly came back from South Africa completely beaten up. They were also injured, low on confidence, and it's the quality that Sri Lanka put up versus the quality we're going to put up against them is it's day and night at the moment. And so I look at that series as like a warm up for England to get used to playing in these conditions. Because I don't believe that the weather would
like
be
playing
very
an
different.
Indian board president's 11 side.
Yeah, pretty much. What I'm concerned about, and I haven't really read about this anywhere, is they're playing two matches in the same stadium, right? Normally, when you tour a country, you play one match and then you go to another stadium, you go to another one, and the only thing is, after the first test, they may have some knowledge of how they want to play the second one. So they may put up a better show in the second one.
Yeah, that's potentially the case. I think the one argument against that is there's 8 wickets on the square. They're preparing 2 wickets per test match. And then of those 2 wickets per test match, I guess the 2 sets of 2 wickets, both those sets are going to be very different wickets. So I think that's kind of where you almost might find that the first test is a bit more of an even contest, where India wins maybe in 4 or 5 days. wicket doesn't break up as much. And then the second test, all of a sudden, you have a rank turner where they're like, okay, we've got a sense of these conditions, but then the wicket will break up so quickly and all the spinners will come into play so quickly that I think England will just crumble. I kind of think that the third test is the tricky one, which is, to your point earlier, the day-night test.
Yeah.
And it's also, a redone Motera. I don't know if the square has changed at all. They were playing T20 games on it recently. I think I saw some of the scores from the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy, and I think the scores were pretty low for T20 cricket, if I'm not wrong. So I wonder if the wicket's just not that fresh, and just like slow and lethargic, and that might potentially play into England's hands because I don't know, spinners tend to do well when the ball actually like grips and turns.
Yep.
Sometimes when it's like just slow and lethargic, it could just be like a run fest, like a dull run fest. I don't know. It's just sort of thinking out loud if that might have an impact, or you might just see the pink ball swinging under lights quite a lot, in which case Anderson and Broad and Archer could come into play. So I think that's the risk test match for India.
Definitely.
If it's 2-1 heading into that fourth test, who knows what could happen, right?
Yeah.
But I will say that, there's a lot of other things I think people are kind of missing out in terms of where we can hurt them. They also have 3 left-handers, and so I think that's another reason why you might play the 2 off spinners. You've got Stokes, Burns, and Moeen Ali will probably play in their top 7.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention Broad and Anderson, or at least one of them in the lower order. So I think that sort of is another reason why you might play the offies. And by the way, in Australia, Ashwin was consistently troubling Steve Smith, the best right-hander of them all. So I don't know if playing 2 offies would go against us. And I guess the only final thing I would say is, where we could potentially hurt them as well is I think they're wary of our fast bowlers now as well. And I wonder if they play people like Siraj and Bumrah on reputation as opposed to, what they're bowling. And I almost wonder if those are the 2 seamers who start and Ishant is left out. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I think it's possible that Ishant might be left out just because he doesn't have a lot of 4-day match practice. He's coming back from an injury, and Siraj did really well in Australia. His confidence will be up. He's in rhythm. He's in form, in rhythm bowler, and it might just be worth to continue with him. I'm not sure if Bumrah is going to play. Is he fit? We've not heard. He was definitely not fit earlier, right? Like in Australia, he didn't play the 4th game. And is it worth risking an injury, or do we keep him for the 3rd test, the pink ball one, where, the fast bowlers potentially get the most help? Because I don't know enough about this new Chennai wicket, whether it's going to help the fast bowlers, is going to be slow and low. Is Umesh Yadav in the squad?
I don't think he is, actually.
Okay.
I think Shardul Thakur is the other seamer. So that's the 4 seamers. Actually, let me double check that. I'm not 100% sure. I guess the only final thing we should talk about while I look this up is how do the team dynamics change now that Virat Kohli's back?
I don't think that changed much, and I think a lot of credit of that has to go to Rahane. He's already come out and said that it's Virat's team. He was only, doing his job as a vice captain. When the captain leaves, he captains a team. And he's such a down-to-earth guy that he's been saying that he only looked good because all the players played their part, and he's saying all the right things. So I think that Kohli comes back in, they seamlessly get back to doing what they were doing. Hopefully Kohli comes back and realizes that he can lean more on Rahane, he can lean more on Rohit Sharma, on Pujara, just as sounding boards, and actually not really captained by committee, but take in differing points of view and analyze them and make calls based on that instead of just what he's got going on and his gut feel and things like that. So I think it'll be a positive. We'll see a good camaraderie between the team. I don't think the players are going to be as in awe of Kohli as they were in the past, because they achieved something without him that was we've never done before. So I think their confidence and their self belief will be high. So I think we'll see a slightly different Indian team.
I think you'll definitely hear a lot more "come on lads" from second slip now that Kohli's back. A bit more chatter around. Hopefully that doesn't detract from the focus. I tend to agree with you. I don't think these guys are necessarily going to change their approach. Maybe there's the element of, if he comes back, do the players start thinking, oh no, he's back, I need to watch what I say or do around him. Hopefully that's not the case. He seems like a lot more easygoing of a guy than the media paints him out to be. And hopefully, like we said, and we discussed at the end of the last series, he's kind of realized that, it's better to involve the group to make decisions, not on everything and not to sort of make it by consensus, but to sort of pick the brains of guys who are sort of smart and been there, done that. Your Ashwins, Bumrahs, Rahane, Rohit Sharma, maybe even Pujara. These are sort of,
Yeah, I mean the senior players. I mean they have experience now, right? I mean these guys have all played like over 50 Test matches, and and they have, they've done well. I mean without him, so they understand the game well, and they should be able to give views that might be different than what he was thinking at that point. And maybe he missed seeing something and somebody else saw something, and it's just respecting your the players you play with, right? You might be the best batsman in the world, but these other guys aren't mugs either, right? I mean they play a lot of cricket, and they can also read the game well. So it's just identifying what might be a good tactic and what to take in. So
yeah,
I think we'll be good. Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and call, as a final aspect of this, I'm going to go ahead and call sort of, it's I don't think there's any doubt that Ashwin's going to end up as highest wicket taker. It's like not even a question, given he's playing all tests, and barring an injury, he's a lead spinner. I don't think there's much of a question for that. But I think as far as lead run getter in the series, I'm going to go ahead and call a very close contest between Virat and Rohit Sharma. I'd love to hear your view on those two items.
I mean, it's hard to argue. Kohli's coming back. He's motivated. He's probably also at peace, right? I mean, he's had a life-changing moment. When you have a kid, a lot of things change. Your perspective changes. So he could come back just cooler, calmer, and just ready to score as a boatload of runs. So it's hard to argue with him. It's hard to argue with Rohit. I think Pujara has as good a shot as scoring. Maybe I'm just biased. I really like him, but I do remember, his when he scores big, and he has the ability to score big. And I think in India, his batting is next level. I think he averages like 80 or something when he's playing spinners, which is by far the highest amongst all of his contemporary batsmen. So I think he'll be scoring big. He could score like 400-500 runs in these, maybe even more.
All right, so you go.
I think it's between these three guys, because I don't think Rahane is going to get as much opportunity, and I don't think Gill is
pick one
experienced enough to get his, to consistently score that. So, but for me, I'm saying it's Pujara. I think he'll be the one.
I'm going to go with Kohli. All right. On that note, briefer Fans in Blue podcast today, just Kushal and I. But most importantly, I think we're both calling an Indian win comfortably. A rejuvenated Indian side after that fantastic series win in Australia, reinforced by the skipper and some key players. And even though England has been playing some good cricket of late, coming off a couple of series wins. We do think that the challenge and the test that India will provide will be of a completely different level. So until next time, signing off from the Fans in Blue.
See you, man.